Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Creative Mornings, Winnipeg. I'd like to recognize that we are coming to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene nations, and homeland to the Red River Métis. Please note that the Creative Mornings event is being recorded by video and photography, and it gets used on our social media accounts and our websites. So by attending this event, you agree to having your picture and your chats recorded. So please make sure that you're following us on social media and tag us in your posts of your screenshot today. We're so pleased to welcome those from our global Creative Morning Winnipeg community who may not be from Winnipeg. So welcome to you. We have so much fun to share with you today. This is one of my favorite events, I must admit. We invite you to contemplate the theme of divergent. And I hope that you are as excited as I am to hear from our speaker today, Chef Ben Kramer, who's also going to share his reflection on his career, what divergent means to him, and how we can bring that idea together as a community. Our hashtag for today's event is hashtag CMWPG and hashtag CMDivergent. My name is Jessica Dumas, and I'm a professional speaker coach. I'm a member of the Creative Mornings Committee, and I'm a partner of Creative Mornings Winnipeg. And many of you might know me as the past chairperson for the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce or for the Aboriginal Chamber of Commerce. And also, if you haven't yet, join me on Instagram, where I do my best to share some speaking tips and try to demystify public speaking and all of what that means. So thank you for joining us on AirMeet. And I know another platform, I'll explain some of the AirMeet functionality in case you're using this for the first time. And if you have used this platform for the first time, if you see a question in the chat that you might be able to answer, we welcome you to please help us answer, to help people troubleshoot as quick as possible. There's also a purple question mark at the bottom right where you can also go for help. So if you haven't filled out the details of your profile, that's going to be really helpful for you to do that. So we encourage you to take a couple of minutes and fill it out with your name, your organization, and how you can be reached. You may have noticed that when you entered, you would have entered into the social lounge. And this is a place where you can hang out and meet new people at virtual tables. When you are at the social lounge, you can have a seat at any one of the tables by clicking Take a Seat. And each time you go into a new room or you are about to speak with someone, you need to go in and turn your camera and your microphone on by using the buttons on your screen so that you can hear and see the people who are at your table. And if you want to step out of the table, you can click Leave that table, and that button is on the right. The maximum number of seats per table is 6. So we welcome you to come in and out of different tables, just like you would at an in-person event. There's a lot of wonderful folks here, and we also want to give you an opportunity to get to know one another and make some new contacts. Also, keep an eye out for the general chat on the right side. That's where we post any announcements and reminders, and that's where we get to read what you're up to and stay in touch that way. While the presentation is on, you'll see the stage come onto your screen like it is right now, and you won't be able to see or hear anyone who is at your table. So your sound and your video are automatically turned off when you're watching the main stage, just like what's happening right now. If you do run into any technical issues, you can directly message John Nuez or Jonathan Lee to help you out. And again, you can use the purple question mark button on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And so again, if you haven't joined us in the chat yet, I invite you to do that. Anything chat related, we definitely want to hear from you. So please engage with us there. When we have our speakers up, or if you have a specific question that you don't want to get lost in the chat, you can use the question feature also on the right. And we have team members who are ready to engage with you in the chat section. So We're doing our best to meet you at all the different angles and make this a really good experience for you. And if you can say welcome to Miranda, we're grateful to have the support of the sign language interpreter class from Red River College. And each monthly session will have a sign language interpreter to help us support the deaf and hard of hearing community. Yes, applauses and hearts, yes. You'll see the interpreters box is pinned to the main viewing options. And our interpreters today are Miranda and Gabby, so they'll be switching off. And we are so happy to have them join us. And we would love to see your Creative Mornings experience on your social media. So the hashtags again are hashtag CMWPG and hashtag CMDivergent. And we're going to put our other social media links in the chat. We'd love to connect with you on there. So follow us and we'll follow you. And you can also stay updated with all of our events from Winnipeg as well as all around the world, because Creative Mornings is a worldwide event. Creative Mornings has a global theme every month, and today's theme is Divergent. And so right now, I ask you to, again, engage in the chat, and I want you to contemplate the theme Divergent. What does that mean to you when you hear the word divergent? What comes to mind? If you could share that reflection in the chat, because we love to just have these ideas shared and connect that way. We always welcome your contributions to the chat when you're contemplating these questions. Again, the theme is Divergent, and if there's any questions in there, then we invite you to answer those questions. To be divergent is to think in a way that invites silliness, play, and new ideas. It's a way of approaching problems that invites innovation, and it relies on creativity. In fact, many creative activities encourage divergent thinking because there's always a seed of possibility, even in the most random and seemingly absurd ideas. We invite you to think divergently, and again in the chat by answering the following question. And no idea is too silly or absurd. After all, that's what divergent thinking is all about. So here's the Creative Morning and Divergent Challenge for this morning. All right, so here's the first question. Share as many possible uses that you can come up with for a paperclip. And I also have this paperclip. So there's two paper clips. So for example, maybe it can be used as a hair accessory. I don't know which one would be a little bit better for that. Maybe you could unfurl or uncurl and use it as, maybe something to stir your coffee. So what are your ideas? What is the craziest thing that you can do with a paperclip? I really want to know. Take the sim out of your phone. Ice pick. That's really good. Pick a hole or a lock. That takes some really serious skill, and I can't say that I have that. Unlock the bathroom door. I've totally done that. All right, so thank you for all of these wonderful, wacky ideas. I love it. Let's celebrate each other's ideas, because diversity allows us to celebrate differences and the way that we think, and that's what we want to encourage here at Creative Mornings. At Creative Mornings Winnipeg, we also want to highlight musicians and artists at our event. And today we're very pleased to have a special performance by Don Amaro, who is a friend of mine, and I'm so happy to see his name as part of our programming. So thank you to Manitoba Music for coordinating this musical performance. We're going to start with this with Don Amaro. So we are very excited to bring you a performance by Winnipeg's own Don Amaro, who's a very special friend of mine. As I said, he's an engaging storyteller, a songwriter, singer, and performer, and a 3-time Juno Award nominee. Don has been tirelessly touring, performing, and speaking across Canada for the last decade, earning the respect and the attention of the Canadian music industry and fans all alike, with a proven ability to effortlessly and genuinely connect with his audience. Amero's talents have been sought after, and in early 2019, he became a part of MDM Recording roster. Amero, who is Cree and Métis heritage, has been recognized for his advocacy for working with Indigenous communities and beyond, including his participation as a youth mentor for the Winnipeg Jets and True North Foundation's Project 11. So while this music is coming to you from Don Amero, we encourage you to get up. If you haven't had a really good stretch this morning, now's a good time to do that. Dance around to the music. And we will also be connecting with you in the chat. So welcome, Don.
2, 3, 4. Ain't nowhere to go, up against the ropes. When lonely hits the heart like a heavy blow. Well, I ain't scared to fight, but I've been wearing down. It's hard to throw a punch when you're on the ground. You might think that the fight is over. It might look like I'm down for the count, but I'm a rolling stone. I'm wild and free, and if no one's by my side, I won't give up on me. Yeah, I've been in the dark, but that ain't me no more. There's a light inside of me worth fighting for. I'm a rolling stone. I am wild and free, and if no one's by my side, I won't give up. Yeah. Ooh. Oh. When there's only moments left, you wished you'd bet on me, 'cause I was never down. I was only on my knees. I'm a rolling stone. I keep rolling on. I'm the tried and true. When the road is long, and I will stand my ground, just like an old oak tree. And if no one's by my side, I'll never run and hide. I won't give up on me.
Woo! I feel like if we were in the room, woo! And some very big applause. Thank you, Don Amero. Thank you, Manitoba Music, for allowing us to enjoy that this morning. What a beautiful tune. Oh, I love his work. He's amazing. I am very pleased to introduce to you Mr. Christian Robin, the co-host of Creative Mornings Winnipeg. By day, Christian is the mild-mannered director of marketing for Red River College, where he oversees marketing, web presence, alumni engagement, and recruitment. By night, he wears a cape and tells stories, metaphorically speaking. In fact, he's a huge supporter of our city with too many volunteer gigs and well-known accomplishments to mention. I can relate. But if you want a taste of what I'm talking about, it was Christian who spearheaded Winnipeg's famed entry into the Guinness Book of World Records for the world's longest frozen river trail. And I just learned that. So Christian is super cool. Way to go. And welcome, Christian. Take it away.
Great. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Perfect. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to be here today and to be the one chosen to tell you about Creative Mornings. So Creative Mornings, all one word, started in New York City in 2008. And since then, it's grown to over 211 cities all over the world. Local chapters not only celebrate a city's creative talent, but also promote an open space to connect with like-minded people. Creative Mornings is guided by a very powerful manifesto, which we faithfully read at every event. And I quote, "Everyone is creative. Creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in jazz hands, virtual claps, and virtual snaps. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities all around the world. Everyone is welcome." The Winnipeg chapter also has made a commitment to reflecting diversity and ensuring inclusion for our events. And that proclamation goes something like this. Located in one of the most diverse communities in North America, we are as inclusive as we are creative. And we will be creative in order to achieve inclusion. We believe in the value of diversity of perspectives, audiences, and industries as we create safe events to debate and discuss what it means to be creative. We will celebrate multiple approaches and points of view, and we will be mindful and purposeful in building a culture where these differences are not only valued, but celebrated. So of course, an event like this each month requires a dedicated team of dedicated partners. And my thanks to my colleagues on the steering committee members, all the steering committee members for their support. You're all superheroes. At this time, I'd also like to acknowledge our global and local partners. So our partners really are partners. Creative Mornings isn't about stamping logos on walls and calling it a partnership. We choose partners that are champions of the creative life. Our partners believe in the magic, the necessity of connected communities. They are the companies that give a damn, leading with empathy and heart to shape the future. Creative Mornings as a whole has 3 global partners, and I'll start with them. A big thank you to MailChimp. MailChimp has supported Creative Mornings for over 11 years now. Check out their super cool animated and interactive report called Against All Odds. Cue the Phil Collins, you'll enjoy it. And thank you very much to Basecamp and Hey. And that's a very sincere thank you because the Creative Mornings Winnipeg team has started using Basecamp as our primary source of communication and project management, and we love it. And frankly, I'm not sure how we managed without it. And then Skillshare is the newest global partner of Creative Mornings Global. Skillshare is an online learning community where millions come together to take the next step on their creative journey. I've just started exploring Skillshare myself just yesterday, in fact, and I'm quite excited with the variety of options and opportunities to explore my own creativity. Please let us know in the chat if you've taken any Skillshare courses or workshops and which ones are your favorites. Our Winnipeg chapter host, AKA our fearless leader, Christine, has been enjoying drawing as self-discovery with Marie Andrew. And our Winnipeg chapter photographer, Gabrielle Touchette, has taken at least 3 courses, some of which, maybe all of which, with her 10-year-old daughter by her side, learning together. And that's wonderful. And they've chosen some things like illustrating in Procreate, as well as how to make a podcast, which I can't wait to hear. Skillshare is offering February Creative Mornings event participants, so that's you, 1 month free. So check it out after the event. And finally, we're also very grateful for all of our local partners. And we want to welcome a new partner today to the Creative Mornings Winnipeg family, and that's Johnson Group. Johnson Group has come on board to support our inclusion of musicians for each event. So the musical acts we just saw, and we are grateful for their support. Give the Johnson Group some love in the chat, please. And with that, I'll turn it over to Christine Watts to introduce our speaker for today's event. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to turn on my video. Here we go. Thanks, Christian. And thanks again, Gabby and Miranda, for, I think we're going to switch over interpreters. So thank you very much to Gabby and Miranda for their amazing interpreting today. It's always great to have Red River College students with us. So welcome, Gabby, and thanks so much, Miranda. So I'm really pleased to introduce our speaker today. I'll remind you, and thanks to everybody for engaging in our paperclip conversation, because divergent thinking is our theme for this month, and we really do want to think about how people are thinking differently in society and how that impacts social change. So Creative Mornings Valencia chapter chose this month's exploration of divergent, and Nuria Tamarit illustrated it. The global theme is presented by our global partner, Basecamp Hay. So when considering the theme of divergent, the Winnipeg chapter really wanted a speaker that we felt lived their life's passion in a divergent way, and about thinking about how to express that passion, about thinking creatively about the impact of their work, not only in their industry, but their community. And Chef Ben Kramer came to mind absolutely immediately. He's demonstrated divergent thinking in many ways by pushing the boundaries of how the culinary industry can contribute to building and supporting communities, including local economies and producers, as well as the city's most vulnerable populations. I've been fortunate enough to attend several of Ben's pop-up culinary events, including Raw Almond, and I can attest to that passion. I can attest to the creativity and talent that goes into his culinary collaborations. Ben often works with other chefs in the city. And I'm also really inspired by his newest venture, Made with Love, that focuses on food security through local and national partnerships. So if you've attended one of Ben's events in the past, please let us know in the chat. And please join me and give a warm welcome to Ben Kramer at our Creative Morning stage this morning. Chef Ben, the stage is yours.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. A couple things from that intro that sort of jumped out at me was the idea of living one's life passion. I have a team motto, and it's to wake up and do what you love every day. So that sort of jumped out at me. The second thing that jumped out was the Creative Mornings tag of giving a damn. When I was at the University of Winnipeg, one of our mantras and something we actually plastered up on the wall was eat like you give a damn. So both of those things spoke to me and really, really sort of jumped out, and why I think this is a good fit having me here. Thanks for having me. I'll be honest, this feels a little weird. I spend most of my time in the kitchen, not doing video calls. This is probably my 6th time on a Zoom type platform. It's interesting, it's great, but it's definitely outside of my comfort zone. I don't do a lot of public speaking. And also I lost all of my notes for this talk on Wednesday night and restarted, but here we are. So let's, I'll do my best, and please bear with me. I'm grateful to be here, and I appreciate you all showing up and sharing this time with me. Today, I'm going to talk about divergence in terms of thinking outside of the box, choosing to avoid the path of least resistance, and taking ideas apart and sort of reframing them. All of this helps us find unconventional solutions to problems, and it's something I've been doing most of my life. I'm hoping to do this through the lens of food and food service, because that's what I do every day, all day. I've intentionally built a career around divergence. Sometimes it's a good thing. More often than not, it causes some conflict, but it is what it is. It turns out I've been divergent most of my life. Sometimes this is out of ego, sometimes out of oppositional defiance, sometimes out of survival. But sometimes, and more often not, it's usually just what's needed to get the job done efficiently. I have a hard time settling and going along with the status quo, and I have a hard time letting go of the idea that we can do better. And honestly, I don't want to. I think we can do better. I'm going to try and figure out how to get a slideshow going here so I can look at my notes and you can look at some pretty pictures. One sec. We got it? I don't know if you can see the slideshow or not, but if you can, somebody let me know. Now more than ever, we've all become somewhat familiar with the need for divergent thinking. A big part of that is thanks to 2020 and COVID. And I have a feeling that 2021 is going to be slightly better, but still just as challenging. As a community, more of us have been forced to adapt, rethink, reframe, and adjust our lives more than ever. Before I get into things, I'm going to give you a little background about me and how I got here. Please forgive this grade 6 level slideshow that I threw together last night. As you probably know, I'm a chef here in Winnipeg. What you might not know is that while I call Winnipeg home, I'm not originally from here. I love Winnipeg deeply, so thank you for allowing me to be here, and thank you for taking me in and for making me feel loved and supported. It's appreciated, to say the least. I was born in Regina. All you Bomber fans, don't hold that against me. I love the Bombers. I grew up in a middle-class family with deep roots in the arts community. I was surrounded by actors, artists, authors, playwrights, and musicians. And it was a very privileged, creative, and open-minded upbringing, to say the least. We then moved to Vancouver when I was 14 to 15 years old, and I was changed by it immeasurably. We landed in East Vancouver. For those familiar with the city right now, I'm not talking about the Vancouver of today, the artsy and somewhat gentrified version. I'm talking about the raw, unfiltered version of the early 90s. It was nicknamed the poorest postal code in Canada, and the downtown east side was my new home. It was an important eye-opener for me coming from a small town in the prairies. I was exposed to a lot of crime, poverty, brutality, and reality really, really quick. My first day in the city, I watched the emergency response team in full battle gear with automatic weapons break down a door a few blocks from my house. My first week in the city, I was mugged, and a few days after that, I got into my first real fight. I lost badly. I saw more diversity in my first few weeks there than I did in all my years growing up in Regina. I also saw a lot of beauty. I saw a community that had insane resilience and pride, and it has a special place in my heart, and that neighborhood will be with me forever. Needless to say, it really illustrated how sheltered my childhood was and how unprepared I was for this transition. There were a handful of incidents in my first few months that I wasn't prepared for, and I didn't have the tools to manage. Being dropped into that neighborhood at that time in my life, at the age I had to learn to survive really quick. Unfortunately, that survival put my parents through hell. It led me to a life of crime, a short stint in youth detention, and inevitably leaving home way too early. I spent a lot of time on the couches of my friends, and I spent some time unhoused and was generally displaced. But I was dealt a much better hand of cards than 90% of the people I hung out with. I'm white, I'm male, and while being white in that neighborhood never felt like an advantage at the time, I'm aware that it was. I grew up with a lot of supports that so many didn't have. I was a smart kid from a decent family, and I chose to make a lot of poor decisions. But I was a natural leader, and I leveraged that to survive and use it to my advantage. I worked my way up the ranks, and thanks to some hard work, work ethic, and the advantages I was born into, I was fairly successful. Successful through the lens of this dummy who thought he was going to be a career criminal and was headed on that path. I wasn't in jail. I supported my 2 roommates. I had a 3-bedroom condo in North Vancouver, and none of us actually had jobs. I thought I was living the dream. I bought my first car for cash and never really thought about bills or consequences for that matter. But the reality was I was spinning out of control and living under constant stress, trauma, and fear. But I normalized it. That's what we do. Big shocker that I was eventually drawn to the kitchen. Fast forward a few years, still very much a kid, pretending to be an adult, I found myself about to become a dad. I guess it was time for me to get my shit together. There was some inevitable overlap from my old life into my new one, but for the most part, I used it as a way out. I managed to get out fairly cleanly, all things considered. There was no roadmap for leaving the lifestyle, but I managed to find one, and as difficult as it was, being a father saved my life. But now I needed to get a job, a real one. I had a little bit of restaurant experience from a handful of dishwashing and prep jobs I'd taken over the years, jobs that I needed to satisfy the terms of my probation. The environment seemed fun, I was used to the stress, and despite its flaws, it's a meritocracy, and hard work equals acceptance for the most part. So I jumped in. I put myself through cooking school and I got a job. I used my drug dealing work ethic and applied it to a new challenge. Drug math and kitchen math are very, very similar, so I had an added advantage. In doing so, I uncovered a love for the hospitality industry. I also uncovered a passion for food and learning to love to take care of people through that food. Side note, I also quickly realized how difficult it was to shift lifestyles and live off of a cook's wage, and how undervalued those in the hospitality business tend to be and still are. So when you go out to eat, tip often and tip well. The industry took me in and gave me a chance to support my family, and I'll forever be grateful. Fast forward a few years and I found myself as a single dad. I did what I do and I tried to adapt. Thank God I lived near my older sister. She really supported us in that chapter of our lives. And although I thought I was managing, it was her that saved us. I'm fiercely independent and it's been a long journey to admit it, but I don't think time to move right up my alley. I opened a little restaurant briefly in South Osborne. I helped out a few others, but I was struggling. I found myself frustrated with access to food, and cooking here in the early 2000s was dramatically different than it was here, or than it was in BC, and miles from where it is now. At the time, there wasn't a lot of farm to table happening. Organic was for weirdo hippies, and when I asked my fish supplier some sustainability questions, they had no idea what I was talking about. This was the only way that I knew how to cook. This was the only way that I wanted to cook, and it was seemingly unavailable to me. This was another turning point for me. Compromising those values wasn't really in my vocabulary back then, and it still isn't, to be honest. It seems as though my options were to either do something about it, shift careers, or head back to BC. I mentally dabbled in all three. And then some of my old habits kicked in. Fuck the system, do your own thing, break the rules. These are all things that I often did for the wrong reasons, but this time I decided to use those gifts and do something positive with it. After a few years, I ended up partnering with a local health food store, and we built a restaurant called Dandelion Eatery. It was Winnipeg's first local, organic, sustainably focused restaurant. We were trying to build the framework for a more holistic system. The food scene was very different back then. It was an uphill battle 99% of the time. But we partnered with as many like-minded people as we could, and we started to build community. Compostable packaging wasn't available in the province. All of the major suppliers in the city, who now sell it to everybody, laughed at us and said it was just a fad and that the market was too small and not to waste our time. So, with the help of a friend, we brought it in ourselves. She built a small business around it and proved that there was a need and a desire. So we stood up for them. We fought the health department, a bunch. Buying directly from farms was discouraged and generally not accepted. It was considered unsafe and dirty. We were told we needed to go through generic wholesalers. We didn't. We bought locally anyway. Now, don't get me wrong. I know we weren't inventing anything new. We were simply pushing hard to make it happen here in Winnipeg. We worked with a whole host of like-minded people, and we did what we could. We made a lot of mistakes, we ruffled a lot of feathers, and we learned a lot, but we kept pushing. We still do. 5 or 6 years into our run at Dandelion, I got a call from Dr. Axworthy at the University of Winnipeg. He was a customer, a supporter, and fundamentally liked what we were doing. And he wanted to make a big change at the university. They were looking at flipping their food services upside down and wanted some help to see if it was even feasible. No multinationals, no processed foods, food from scratch. I helped them redesign a food service company that focused on sustainability, used local suppliers to cook healthy food from scratch, all while employing people who were traditionally marginalized. It was a theoretical and fun consulting job to work on. We proved on paper that it could, under the right conditions, most likely possibly work. But I didn't think they'd do anything with it. There were too many challenges, and I thought that's what universities did. Think about things, talk about things. Cool. I had some fun. I learned some new skills. I got a decent check. Now I went back to work. Things got busy and I sort of forgot about it. A few months later, they reached out and said they were going to try it and asked if I wanted the job. Side note, Dr. Axworthy is a perfect example of divergent thinking. He was advised by most of his staff that they should seek out an institutional chef. Why not Ben, he said. He's already doing the work. Makes sense to me. Everybody assumed that because I was a restaurant chef, doing fancy food, going to events, getting awards, that there's no way I'd take a step backwards and come to a cafeteria. Years later, after taking the job, Lloyd told me that he told everyone to try, to ask, not to assume. What's the worst that can happen? I'll say no, then they can start working down the list. But when they asked, I said yes. And then I froze. Fuck. I had to put my money where my mouth was and actually back up all this big talk. To do the thing that I said was possible, the thing that I knew was possibly a little far-reaching and a wee bit idealistic. Theorizing something is clearly different than doing it. Despite most other institutions and outside consultants telling us we would fail, the university wanted to try anyway. And for the most part, it worked. We reimagined institutional food. At the same time, my friend Josh was doing a similar thing out at Ryerson, but we were one of the first in Canada and arguably North America to institute a wholesale change like this. In 1 year, we took the university food service from the bottom 5 in terms of student satisfaction to the top 5. One of the ways we did this was to take commonly held ideas and look at them differently. In a traditional institutional food service, labor is low because they don't value people, and food cost is high because of kickbacks and the use of pre-processed food. All we did was reverse it. The numbers stayed the same at the end and we became profitable. Then, after 6 years or so, things changed as they tend to do in a bureaucracy. Lloyd retired, our board changed directions, focus shifted. I was only there to affect change, and I had no desire to take any backward steps unless it was part of a bigger plan to leap forward. I drew some pretty strong lines in the sand, and my contract wasn't renewed. Sometimes when you push all your chips in, you lose. At least that's how it felt at the time. That's when funeventsonly.com was born. I took some time off. I took on some consulting work. I did some catering. All temporary while I figured out what my next move was. Then I took some more catering work. And some more. And a lot of catering work. I've been the chef at Raw Almond since day one. My friend Mandel started the project and I've been part of the alumni. I've helped start and continue Table for 1200. I'm the chef at the Winnipeg Folk Festival, feeding all the volunteers and crew backstage. We launched the Push Project in 2019. We did food for Interstellar Rodeo and we'll be managing food for The Current, as well as a pretty extensive list of private and corporate events. We do foods for groups as small as 2 and as large as 5,000. We're both diverse and selective in the work we do. Our crew is made up of wonderful, like-minded people, and we put a big focus on helping out and giving back when we can. We've always jumped at the chance to help out at various fundraisers over the years, and we feed many of the neighborhood locals when we can. Our kitchen's in the heart of downtown, so there's a lot of locals that need food. Any other extra food we have gets taken to the Main Street Project. I say all of this not to brag, although we are quite proud, but to highlight where we're headed, where I see our business shifting. As we were gearing up for a very busy and record-setting 2020, the bottom fell out, as I'm sure it did for a lot of you. Events were canceled, restaurants were shut down, and people were hurting. So we did what we know how to do best. We fed people. We put out a call to all the restaurants that were being forced to close, knowing full well that they were dealing with shutting their doors, laying off staff, dealing with landlords, and a whole pile of other unexpected issues with very short notice. We instinctually knew that the food was going to go bad in their coolers and would probably be one of the last things attended to. We encouraged giving this food to their staff to help them through quarantine and said that we would take whatever was left over. Food donations came in and we distributed it to dozens of organizations that needed it. And then more food came in, and more, and a lot more. We ended up having to set up a mini grocery store so that small organizations who were trying to feed their community could come take what they needed. We cooked meals, we made soups, we made stews, and we pushed it out the door as fast as we possibly could. We rescued and reclaimed over $120,000 worth of food in just over a week. It simultaneously broke and filled my heart. Then, as expected, it dried up. We rescued as much food as we could, restaurants were closed, and we went into our first lockdown. We then tucked away for several weeks, took a break, isolated, and waited to see what this thing would look like. And after a few weeks, it became clear that it wasn't going to pass quickly. So we tried to figure out how we could help in the most effective way possible. A little on that in a minute. All of this to say that I believe that every one of these projects and milestones came out of divergent thinking. Very often when we want to try something new, the first answer is no, either internally or externally, often both. We get told and we tell ourselves all the reasons why it won't work or why we can't do it. When my friend Mandel wanted to build a restaurant on the river in the middle of winter, no was the first answer he got. When we wanted to feed 1,200 people at one long table at the same time, outside, with no kitchen, we were told it couldn't happen. When we reached out to grocery stores and a lot of large food service companies to ask if we could rescue their waste, food that was getting thrown out anyway, we were told no, they didn't want to risk being liable. I've always been a big fan of asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Sometimes you have to break a few rules in order to make some change. I'm comfortable with that, and being in the position that I'm in, I'm able to do it from a place of relative safety. And because of that, I feel an obligation to keep pushing. When I'm my best self, I tend to look at the world as an opportunity. I don't see a bunch of problems, and I know this may be controversial, and I'm aware it's coming from a very privileged place, but I feel like if you're not using your privilege to affect change for the better, you're wasting it. If you want to make real change, you have to do something. Talk is cheap. Think differently, act differently, challenge traditional systems, threaten the status quo, give a damn. Most importantly, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. If I've learned anything, it's less about what you do and more about why you do it. Intention is key. I find myself getting frustrated that the measure of success is often how much you've done and not how well you've done it. I see this especially in the social sector. Numbers and statistics over people. We tend to focus on how much food we give people and not how well we feed people. At my core, I believe that healthy food is a basic human right. Over the span of my career, I've gone from fine dining to doing food for movie sets, to small independent purpose-driven restaurants, to fast casual, to large high-scale volume cafeterias, to private catering. I've cooked for my ego, I've cooked to support myself and my family, I've cooked to support farmers and producers, I've cooked to create jobs for friends, and I've cooked to help change a system. I've catered to my clientele, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to choose who that clientele is. But more importantly, I've cooked to feed people who just really fucking need to eat. I wholeheartedly believe that the current solution is rooted in the problem. I believe that solution can come from divergent thinking. What we're doing clearly isn't working well. We have more than enough resources times a million. These resources are just going to the wrong places. It's an allocation issue, not a supply issue. We need to be smarter about it. Food insecurity isn't about food. It sounds crazy and counterintuitive, but it's true. Lack of food isn't the issue. Lack of access is. Poverty is. Affordable housing and childcare is. Food and feeding people with dignity is part of that. To be honest, a lot of people don't really give a shit about food. But before you can make change with or through food, you need to understand why it's important. It infuriates me that so many people think that when you're feeding people for free, as we do, what you feed them shouldn't matter, that they should just be happy with what they get. We get to decide what they eat. We tell them, eat this, it's good. If I've learned anything, cooking at universities, teaching kids, raising my own kids, or feeding some of the city's most vulnerable, it's that people should have choice. They should have food sovereignty. The people we are feeding right now are just that, people. I shouldn't have to say it, but I do. I hear terms like addict, homeless, meth head, crackheads, whatever, and it makes me sick. We're talking about people, period. Real human beings. Mark Brand, a good friend and mentor of mine, said something that really hit home. Food is the conduit to love, and it's how we show people that we deeply care about them and their success, and that every time we do the opposite, it is the opposite. It's disrespecting people. Now, I know I'm talking about a fairly big issue, and I know it's not one that'll be solved overnight, but I choose to concentrate on food because it's what I do best. It's what I know. I've taken the approach that when you come upon a challenge that's so big, so overwhelming that you just have to walk away to see the big picture, the best thing to do is to step back, take a breath or 5, and find the piece that you care about, or the piece that you're good at, and do that. It's our duty. Anything less than that would be to sacrifice the gift we were given. We often get people who ask if they can come help us cook, come hang out in the kitchen. And while I know that they mean well, they usually come with no kitchen experience. And to be blunt, that's often a liability and not super helpful. Use your gifts. If you're a lawyer, use that. People need lawyers. We need them. If you're an accountant, use that. Help people understand money. Use your gifts in the most effective way possible, not just the ones that seem fun and glamorous, thanks to the Food Network. So that's what we did. We partnered with the Community Food Centers of Canada and Norwest and launched a project called Made with Love. Made with Love is how we are trying to give back. It's how we are trying to help. I'd like to play a short video that our friend Sean made about it rather than talk about it. If somebody can make that happen, that'd be great.
Healthy food is a basic human right. There's no reason why we all shouldn't have access to the same food. Once you have a good meal, once you feel taken care of, you tend to have a different outlook. I've made my entire living feeding people. So being able to give back to people that need food and don't have access to it wasn't a hard choice to me. Until we hit, a lot of the frontline organizations sort of scaled down for safety. People also didn't feel comfortable going to food banks. So what we did is we designed meals that are individually packed, that can get handed out. People can take them home and you can heat them up regardless of any kind of equipment that you have. The idea was to keep people in their homes if they had them and feeding them nutritious food. I've been working with Community Food Centers of Canada for 6 or 7 years now. So it was a natural fit when they started this project for us to jump on board. The seed money that got this thing started was enough to get us through the first couple weeks, and then we were responsible for fundraising the rest. I just put up a post on Instagram explaining what we were doing, and then next thing we knew, Winnipeg stepped up and kind of bankrolled us for 13 weeks. We got a pretty small team. Part of the goal was to keep the bubble really small, not have a pile of people in there, but we understand food and how to get money for your buck. The first couple of weeks, we were only doing a few hundred meals. So we prepare all the food, we pack all the food, we box it up, we get it ready to go. And we're dealing with 5 different community organizations right now that distribute it. We hit 13,000 meals since this thing started, and all funded by the public, 100%. It's amazing. Rather than run this as a short-term project, we're just going to do it until the money runs out. We're cooked, so it's our way of kind of showing love and showing support. As people can support it, so we'll keep feeding people that need it.
Now, this was filmed a little while ago. currently we're going on week 41 of this project. We've surpassed over 25,000 meals. Just added Manitoba Housing to one of the many organizations that we're getting food to. But the key component here is that we're doing quality, nutrient-dense meals, not just high-volume batch cooking. I believe that the two don't need to be mutually exclusive. Is it a solution to this massive problem? Hell no. It's a Band-Aid. We're aware of that. But people are bleeding right now, and we need to do some triage. Since we can't all be together in person, sharing space and energy, we're all able to take a moment and meet some people in this virtual room. If you're here, you're probably in a somewhat privileged position. If you're here, you're probably virtually surrounded by some pretty like-minded people, and that I'm assuming that we're all pretty great. What I ask of you today is to reach out and make a new friend. I believe that there's strength in numbers and strength in community. Collectively, I think we can use our creative minds to make the world a much better place. Figure out what sort of impact that you can have. We can hold each other up, but more importantly, we can hold each other accountable. If what we're doing with Made with Love speaks with you, I'd love it if you were able to share. Money, unfortunately, is the oxygen that keeps projects like this going, and we have committed to keep doing this project until the money runs out. Oftentimes, the solutions that are currently in place aren't solutions at all. So I urge you not to settle, to keep thinking outside of the box, and to keep being more divergent. But more importantly, use your gifts to do the right thing. Thanks for listening. That's all I got.
Hi, sorry for that little bit of awkwardness when you're done. It's like, okay, what do I do now?
No problem.
You know what, Ben, that was amazing. Keep those emojis coming up. Like, my heart was really moved through hearing what you shared with us today. So thank you so much for sharing, for being honest about your story. It's so powerful. So we have some time for any questions. If anyone has any questions on how to connect or just anything for Ben right now, please feel free to pop that in the chat. In the meantime, I'll continue with just showing you some more appreciation. You had so many powerful quotes that you shared that people are like in the chat saying, okay, I wrote this one down. Like, that's really good. Eat like you give a damn was one of them. I love that you talked about drug math and kitchen math and how they're similar. You know what?
Very similar.
I love that. And I hear you there because in Winnipeg, like, I've worked in drug prevention, like support and that sort of thing, gang prevention. I grew up in the North End. It was, we all know Winnipeg's North End. And I hear you when you talk about like the skills that it took for you to get into the kitchen. Like, you had skills, right? You knew how to do things. And I think that's a powerful way to look at people who we see on the street or who we see are not living the best life right now because they didn't have the opportunity, but they have skills.
Absolutely.
Like, what was that like for you when you started learning about, like, hey, this is kind of easy, or what was it like?
Well, I mean, even bigger than that, as not just as an employee, but as when I became an employer, reaching out to people who would normally get overlooked for jobs was a huge part of what I wanted to do and what we did do, especially at the university. I mean, not to knock traditional ways of learning, but, if you want to talk about job retention, give a job to somebody who really, really, really needs it. They're not looking for the next big thing. They just want to work. They just want to help. They just want to contribute. And I think we tend to overlook some of the best, most qualified people out there because of these biases that we have. One of my first kitchen jobs, I remember I was washing dishes, and it was a big restaurant, and they were really busy and behind and in the shit the whole time. And one of the chefs ran into the back and straight up yelled, "Which one of you kids knows how to deal drugs? I need somebody who can work a scale because we have to make pizza dough on the fly." So I put my hand up and jumped in and knew how to convert grams to ounces. And next thing you know, I was in the kitchen. So it's more a matter of looking at these things as opposed to as not negatives. It's figuring out how we can flip them into positives.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so inspired. So again, any questions, please put them in the chat. When you started, you shared your shirt, Wake Up and Love What You Do. So is this like a shirt that people can buy from you?
Not yet. We made some just for us. We have a few different slogans, but yeah, we were talking about maybe retailing them at some point. I get hit up on Instagram all the time about it. So
yeah. So who can help Ben with that? Let us know. Use your skills, right? Let's set that up. I just want to say, I believe that leadership happens through influence, and you are doing that. So we're so happy that you decided to stay in Winnipeg and break the rules. But again, like so many powerful quotes, such a moving and amazing story. And we're so, so thankful that you decided to come and join us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so we will let you go backstage and enjoy the rest of the event. And we hope that we see you come back every month and invite all your friends.
You got it. Thanks.
Okay, bye. That was simply fabulous. Simply fabulous. Amazing work. Okay. Deep breath. That was so fun. I'm so inspired, and there's so much more that I want to say to Chef Ben. So as we continue, would you be interested in pitching your next side project, a job alert, or a work for hire at our next Creative Mornings event? We're inviting community members to participate in our next Creative Mornings event to pitch themselves. And you can pitch a product or an idea, but you only get 30 seconds to do it. So submit a 30-second video to our email at winnipeg@creativemornings.com. And we plan to pick 2 or 3 for our next event in March. So come on, what do you have to lose? You have 30 seconds. So here's our first 30-second pitch from Jonathan Villavarde, Director of Retouch Media.
Hi, I'm Johnny Villaverde. I do a lot of things. I do video production and graphic design and even play-by-play esports commentary. I do a lot of fun stuff. So if you want to check out anything I do so at retouchmedia.com. That's basically where I host my portfolio. And if you want to contact me, that'd be great. One thing I do want to get into is voice acting. So if you like the sound of my voice, give me a shout too, as well as anything else you can give me a shout for. I'd love to work with you.
Right on. Excellent. Thanks so much. As you become members of the global Creative Mornings community, we want you to celebrate your creative superpowers through the Creative Guilds. So please take time to fill out your profile in the Creative Mornings website, because you never know who might need your superpower. For next month's event, thank you again for everyone to take the time to join us in celebrating our Creative Mornings events. We all love this event. We have many great partners, and we love doing this. So we hope that you had a great time. We hope that you will come back and join us, and we look forward to seeing you in March. We are going to be welcoming James Murphy, former Winnipeg Blue Bomber, and Ramir Diaz, who will be speaking on the theme of Ripple, with a great talk called Let It Rip, the ripple effect of technology in the construction industry. The tickets for the upcoming event are already on sale. They're available they're not for sale. They're available to sign up today. And invite your friends. And one of the things that we say in the Indigenous community, we joke about this all the time, is invite your cousins. Tell your friends, tell your cousins. Don't forget to add us to your social media accounts and tag us in your posts after the event. We'll be sending you a post-event email with all the links that we shared with you today and a short survey so that you can give us your feedback. And so this formal program is done, but please feel free to head back to the social lounge and hang out and chat with folks from today's event for a little bit longer. And because this is another opportunity to network and meet amazing, like-minded people who are just like you. So thanks so much for joining us. We hope you have a great day, a great weekend, and we'll see you again next time.